Greetings to everybody. My name is Adrian Adams and I'm from Focus Team Leadership Training. For the next 3 years, we are on a research journey to better understand how the church in Sub-Saharan Africa and across other parts of Africa respond to crisis. So I have with me today Geoffrey Kibigo from Tearfund, and Geoffrey is not just an expert in the field because of the experience and what they're doing, but Geoffrey is also part of the research team, and we are excited that in the next couple of years we will try to learn and better understand on how we can assist the church in Sub-Saharan Africa to be better prepared in the response to crisis. Geoffrey, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us today. And we want to, as you are fully aware, we want to get a better understanding on your knowledge and your understanding as into what's happening across Sub-Saharan Africa, especially in the regions where you are working, and how the church responds to crisis. So please take a moment, introduce yourself a little bit, what are you doing, where you're from, and then I have a few questions for you that I would like to better understand.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Adrian. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Geoffrey Kibigo. I am Disaster Risk Management Officer at Tearfund, with a jurisdiction of about 7 countries in the Southern and Eastern Africa region. And my role is basically to work with the churches and communities to make them disaster ready and to be mitigated well enough if there was such a possibility that in case of a disaster was to happen, it is able to be resilient enough and to come out of it. You'll understand that in Tearfund, we have got 2 structures. We have a structure of disaster response and we have a structure of mitigation. So I am on the side of disaster response. I mean, disaster mitigation, not the response. But however, they work hand in hand, because in a response situation, as you touch the needs of now, there is need to build resilience, and that is how I come in. We follow that up. And within our structures, our principal structure is the church, the local church at the community level. So our engagement is in that space. So I might not be exposing myself a lot to the world of other organizations, but specifically within the church structures, that is where we work. Yeah.
That's very exciting. And so obviously, how many years have you been in this position, and how many organizations or churches are you taking or working with in your regions?
I have been at Tearfund for 3 years now, and this specific role, I have taken it over for the past 2 years. And in the 7 countries that you're talking about, you're talking of thousands of local churches, not the local churches, because you might look like a mainstream church, let's say, for example, an Anglican church, but it have got several thousands, numerous local churches. So we count the churches at that local level. So in each of the countries, we are not talking of less than 2,000 local churches. And right now, as Tearfund, we are on a journey of touching 250,000 local churches in the next 3 years. So wow, that is the magnitude of what we are looking at it. But look at it from the perspective of the local small church. So that is how our counting is. Yeah.
That's super. So obviously you guys have seen the church facing crisis, responding to crisis, overcoming crisis, and some maybe not even managed to overcome a specific crisis. So I think for us today to have the opportunity to listen to you as you will share some of your experiences, I think, thank you so much for being available and willing to share. So I will jump straight into it by asking you the simple, straightforward question that as a church, can you provide us maybe 1 or 2 examples of crises that the church has faced and how they responded to it? Maybe just select 1 crisis that has been maybe a big crisis and how the church have responded to it, and even perhaps even some of the challenges that they have faced in responding to it.
Thank you. Let me use an example of COVID-19. It was a global pandemic, and almost everybody was involved in one way or another, trying to see how to stay safe and how to survive through the season. And so I will use the churches in Zambia and the churches in Kenya on two different responses. If I started with the church in Kenya, we noted that depression was becoming part and parcel of the outcome of the COVID-19, because you have been exposed into a reality where you had not been before. You have a lockdown, you have job losses, and that interfered with the normal way of life, where people found themselves in different, territories. And issues of, for instance, in Kenya, issues of suicide, issue of homicide, issues of GBV became very high because of underlying depressions that were taking place. And so through the Scripture Union, under the umbrella of the Anglican Church of Kenya, they started a PSS, psychosocial support program, where they gave lessons to congregants on signs that you can be able to pick and tell that this person is going through a depression. It was a free lesson, a free training provided across the country in almost all the Anglican churches of Kenya. And the main idea was, because sometimes we wait until the situation becomes worse. That is when we go to respond. But equipping the congregants with those basic tips that if you find a person behaving this way, chances are you are experiencing a depression at this level, and therefore the referral mechanisms are this. So it was a package that was having the identification that the person is getting into a depression, and then the referral pathways, because they may not have the skills, the competencies to provide the psychosocial support. Of course, there are some within the church networks that would provide that one pro bono for free. But then you have got the professional cases that would be referred. When you go to Zambia, we are looking at the churches becoming the platform for advocacy. The messages that the government wanted to, to provide to the communities in terms of how do you prevent yourself from getting COVID-19? How do you stay safe? The essence of vaccination, why it was important to be tested. Those messages were really relied upon within the church structures. For instance, in Uganda, Brethren Christian Church was one of very strong partners that we are working with in that space, and also demonstrating the hygiene measures that the government or the various health agencies were pushing. Those messages were passed in the church. And in doing that, because the church is very much close to the people, I think it is the closest entity to the people other than the government. And every member of a community identifies a particular church, not region, but a church where they go to worship. And so taking that message to that down level was very important, and was able to realize a lot of impact within a short given time. And then you have partners that would want to donate maybe some masks that everybody was required to have, maybe the detergents, the sanitizers. The delivery point was always, most of the times, at the local church or at the local primary school, where the communities would come and access these benefits. Well, that was happening in the midst of a lot of challenges. And one of them was the ability of the church to mobilize resources. You find that the immediate target for a local church is the congregants. You talk to them, you reach out to their soul, to their heart, to feel compelled to touch under the compassion ministry. So, and where you have got a church of averagely economically stable people, you are going to receive some average contributions. So it goes like that. The church is in a better state, they're able to provide a bit more. And so the resources are few, the people that are requiring are many. And then the church ability technically to write proposals or concept notes, appeals, is not really there. It is not a world that they are exposed in. So you find that whereas organization would have some resources and asking local communities to, through the CBOs or the NGOs or the civil actors to come and apply the church's ability to access those funds was a little bit limited. And that is why as Tearfund, the role that I am doing is making the church have the capacity to be able to find itself at the table where the resources are being discussed, because we have taken them through a capacity enhancement program that they can be able to put together a concept note, able to demonstrate what is it that they want to do and the resources they are asking for. I think I have gone around that question and have discussed a number of issues that perhaps in case there is one that is not clear, you can check with me again. Yeah.
No, I think that's super. What I like about what he's saying, and it's so true, even when we have traveled with previous research trips, is that we have found, as you explained, that when there's a crisis in the community, the natural flow or direction of the leadership or of the institution is to go to his own members. Yet the members themselves are the ones that is going through the crisis. And it's interesting. I remember a couple of years ago, when there was a flood in Malawi, we went in there to try and get a better understanding of what's happening and what's the best way to respond and be of assistance. And I remember how the church have mobilized their own congregations, not just to help themselves, but to help the broader community. And that's something very unique that we find, that usually those who respond the most and provides the best help are also those that are in the greatest need. And that's really something that I find special about the church and its structures. But as you said, also there's a great need in equipping the church to get on the forefront on accessing finances and resources and support outside their direct communities, so that those accountability and management and everything is in place to provide proper feedback of what is happening with the resources that came in and how it's been applied. So yeah, no, thank you so much. I think that's truly helpful. You've mentioned about other organizations that are taking hands and partnering. In your experience, have you seen a lot of collaboration between different organizations when the church is facing a crisis? And perhaps also, are there examples of interfaith engagement taking place? For example, the church, the local Christian church, taking hands with another faith community, whether it's Islam or whatever, and collectively work to solve the crisis for the greater good.
Oh, thank you for that. Yes, I will use the example of the drought in the north of the Horn of Africa that was happening in the previous 2 years, and it was affecting countries in Ethiopia, Kenya, and Uganda, and some parts of Somalia. So in our response, as Tearfund, we responded through the local church, specifically through the Anglican Church and the Pentecostal Assemblies of God Church in Uganda, something like that. And for instance, in the case of Kenya, in the northern Kenya, it is predominantly a Muslim context. And so we are there, you're providing that response to the community because the drought was so severe. But the community you are ministering to through the support that you're providing is about 75% Muslim. So no way we would have achieved that without working together with the brethren and sisters in the Muslim community in that context. And you found that many of the times we would meet the partner that we are supporting, the local church, would meet with the other religious actors, faith actors in that context to agree that you target this village, this one targets this village, so that we make sure that every person in need, her need were addressed. And by doing that, you could have the natural bias. As a Christian, you would find yourself wanting to go where the Christians are. It is a natural bias. But the table that is provided where we come and say, we have this support, these Muslim brethren have this support, these other faiths have got this support, and these agents, other partners, including the the action aids, including people like the World Food Program, they would also come with their support. But then we have a table where we are discussing who is going where. And I found that one really working well. And then in Uganda, the partnership between the different Christian faiths, you have got the Catholics, you have the Pentecostals, you have got the Church of Uganda coming together to discuss what is it that we need and who can we approach to provide this support. So I think that one is there. But the only feeling I get is that sometimes when these big organizations are meeting to discuss a particular support, you find that they discuss like the church is not a partner per se. The church is a host. So when they are discussing that they are going to go into a particular context, the church would be viewed as a host where they can come and call people to come and meet, but not looked at as a potential actor in the response per se. Yeah.
Why would you say the church is not acting as a responder but more as a host? What would you say could be the reason for that?
I think what I say from where I sit is the question of perception and what I would call esteem, the self-esteem. If you equate a church into a person, you find yourself as I am the one who hosts people, and then other people, donors, would come and support. And remember, the donor syndrome, donor dependency syndrome is quite huge. And especially, and this is very interesting, especially the donors that would come driving big cars. You find that most of the local churches don't have even a car for their local pastor. Yeah. So when you see that this big brother is coming with a big car, red number plate, big logo. So this is the person that is coming to help. And for me as a church is to give them the space, call the people to come, to listen to what the donors are coming to say. So the local church sometimes doesn't view that support they are providing in creating the space where the donors would come, donors, quote unquote, would come and meet them as a contribution towards the response. And so that is why, as I was telling you in the beginning, the work that I am doing at Tearfund is to raise that awareness in the local church, that the little thing that they're able to do is part and parcel of a response during that crisis. Yeah.
No, that's true. No, that's powerful, and thank you so much. I think obviously all our viewers and people listening to this conversation, at the end of the day, I think everybody's got an example of a church, whether it's their own church or they at least know of a church or a community that has gone through crisis. And you've given a brilliant example of COVID, which everyone is aware of. Everyone had some form or format of experience of COVID and how the church responded to it. Maybe in a few minutes, based on your experience again, as into how churches have responded to it. Obviously, we are fully aware that crisis is not something of the past, although we use examples like COVID, but crisis is not something of the past, and we will certainly face more crises as we go forward in life. Maybe 2 or 3 key things, principles that you guys maybe have learned that you would like to share with others to be aware of in helping them to respond to crisis in a better way. What would be 2 or 3 guidelines or points of advice that you maybe can give to churches and church leaders and community members?
Yeah, I think the first one, which I would relate to our DNA as Tearfund, the approach we use, church and community mobilization, the role of the gospel in influencing transformation and influencing the mindset change. Remember what I have told you, that the perception that the donors, the big guys, are the ones who are supposed to respond, and the church, I am a small person, my work is to call people to come and be helped. So through the CCT approach, the community, church and community mobilization approach, where you are addressing the mindset and the heart of the person, that we are all created by God in his own image, and he has given to us resources that we can be able to leverage on to come out of a crisis or to build our resilience. So that resilience focus is very, very important, because at the local church, that down level because in the church, all are equal. We have got a pastor and he's ministering to us. And you have seen that most of the churches will always have the compassion ministry, where they are asking their congregants to give something in case there is someone who is in need. So expanding on that and putting it into scale, because small elements of that is already there in the church. By them agreeing to do ministry, compassion ministry, is an indicator that they appreciate that we have got people in need amongst ourselves. So scaling that one up. And the second one is the structures of the local church that gives them the ability to understand each and every individual that worships with them. So when it comes to idea of beneficiary registration, beneficiary selection, using the most in need etc., the church has got a better understanding, because they worship with them every day. So they know so-and-so, a member so-and-so who belong to this small Christian community is at need, is at risk. So I think leveraging on that knowledge is very, very important. And the third thing is the church itself always provides a safe space. You find that in case of an emergency in a community, people run either to a public space in a school or they will run into a church. And even on the other ordinary days, you find that in case somebody is passing, is hungry, is having this issue, they always go to the church. It is difficult for them to go to the big NGOs, but they run to the church because there is no person who is asking you for security, who are you, whatever. The church is an open door. And I think leveraging on that, because in a moment of a crisis, the first cardinal thing to do is saving lives. And where they feel safe is where they go. And the church, local church, is one of that space where they feel very, very safe. I think those are the three things I would talk about. The power of the gospel in terms of transforming the mindset, in terms of response, the structures that are provided by the local church, and that family, the open door thing that everybody can run into and get the access that they need. And then the compassion ministry, which most of the churches have, is a question of just making it, building on that. And many, many more are going to be involved in this process, so that we remove ourselves from the perspective that it is only the big people that should come to support in terms of crisis or in terms of a disaster. I think that is what I would say for now in a short. Yeah.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Thank you so much. I think there's so much more that can be discussed, and so much more we can learn from you guys based on your years of experience. So thank you from our side, and thank you for participating in the conversation. To all our viewers, we will have regular updates or regular conversations similar to this with different organizations and leaders that we will share. I can tell you that on the 1st of August 2024, we will also depart on a road trip for 72 days from South Africa all the way to Burundi, where we will meet with hundreds and hundreds of different leaders along the way to learn and listen and gain a better understanding on how the church in Sub-Saharan Africa responds to crisis. And I do think there's valuable lessons that can be shared across the globe as to how the church responds to crisis in Sub-Saharan Africa. So thank you so much for listening. Please make sure that you have subscribed. Make sure that you have followed us and that you share this video with other people so that together we can be better prepared, not just as communities, but as a church on how to respond to crisis. Thank you so much.